Clint Eastwood had always been known for his stoic demeanor and unshakable calm under pressure, a quality that had defined his on-screen persona for decades. But even icons have their limits. The world was reminded of this when he appeared as a guest on Jimmy Kimmel's late-night show last week. What was expected to be a light-hearted and nostalgic conversation quickly turned tense when Kimmel made a comment that Eastwood clearly didn't find amusing. Initially, the studio audience laughed, thinking it was part of the usual banter. However, Clint's stone-faced glare hinted otherwise. The tension was thick enough to cut with a knife, and the atmosphere in the room shifted from amusement to stunned silence. It became evident that something was brewing beneath the surface, something far from scripted or rehearsed. What followed stunned viewers, staff, and fans alike. Eastwood, typically reserved in public, chose not to let the moment pass. His response was swift, blunt, and more pointed than anything Kimmel seemed prepared for. The situation escalated when Kimmel, known for his biting sarcasm, followed up his earlier joke with the comment about Eastwood's age and relevance in modern Hollywood. He grinned as he delivered the line, clearly expecting a chuckle or perhaps even a witty comeback from the veteran actor. Instead, Clint leaned forward, locked eyes with the host, and delivered a cold retort that cut through the laughter. "I've been making films since before you learned to tie a tie," he said, his voice calm but heavy with authority. "Maybe show some respect to someone who built the road you're walking on." The audience gasped. Some clapped nervously, unsure whether this was part of the performance or a genuine rebuke. Kimmel's smile faltered for the first time, and he shifted uncomfortably in his chair. The cameras kept rolling, but it was clear that the energy in the room had changed. Clint wasn't there for games, and Kimmel had just poked the wrong bear. Trying to recover the segment, Kimmel attempted to pivot to a lighter topic, bringing up one of Eastwood's old westerns. "Unforgiven," he said, "was that your retirement plan before you realized people still remembered your name?" It was meant to be playful, a jab at the longevity of Clint's career, but it landed like a slap. Eastwood didn't blink. He simply crossed his arms and replied, "No, Jimmy, Unforgiven was about men facing consequences. Maybe you should watch it again." The crowd murmured as tension surged again. It was clear that Eastwood wasn't interested in smoothing things over. Every word he spoke was deliberate, controlled, and loaded with a lifetime's worth of grit. Kimmel looked towards the producers nervously, eyes scanning for cues or rescue. But the cameras were still rolling, and the show's live format left little room for damage control. What had started as light entertainment was becoming an unforgettable moment in late-night history. Backstage crew members later confirmed that Eastwood had made it clear before the show that he was there to promote his new film and didn't want to engage in mockery disguised as humor. Kimmel, however, apparently brushed off the warning, confident that the actor could take a joke or two. But Eastwood wasn't laughing. Instead, he leaned into his decades of no-nonsense presence and began to turn the interview into a reckoning. He spoke not just to Kimmel but through him, addressing a culture of media personalities who often cloaked disrespect behind sarcasm. "You think you're clever because you can talk fast and hide behind a desk," Clint said calmly. "But talking fast doesn't mean you're saying anything worth hearing." The audience, caught between amusement and discomfort, grew quieter with each passing second. The confrontation was no longer just awkward, it had become philosophical, symbolic even, a battle between generations and values played out on live television. Kimmel attempted once more to salvage the situation by shifting the blame, saying, "It's all in fun, Clint. The audience loves you, everyone does." But that only seemed to fuel the fire. Eastwood nodded slowly, then said, "Then maybe give them something worth loving instead of cheap laughs." The line hit hard. A few people clapped, perhaps uncertain of the social cues but sensing the weight of the moment. Clint sat back, arms still crossed, his silence now more powerful than any retort. Kimmel chuckled awkwardly, muttered something about being roasted, and looked at the producers again. This time, there was movement behind the scenes. A stagehand approached, whispering in Kimmel's ear while the cameras panned to the audience. Clint remained unmoved, a monolith of presence, his eyes never leaving the host. In that instant, everyone watching understood. This wasn't just a segment gone wrong. This was a live confrontation between two worlds of Hollywood's past and present, each unwilling to yield. Then, just as Kimmel began to introduce a commercial break, Eastwood stood up. It wasn't rushed or dramatic. He simply rose to his feet, adjusted his jacket, and looked down at Kimmel. "You got what you wanted, Jimmy," he said, "but next time, be careful what you wish for." Without waiting for permission or cue, he walked off the set. The studio went silent. Kimmel looked stunned, mouth slightly open, unsure whether to chase the actor or play it off. After a moment of awkward laughter, he turned to the audience and muttered, "Well, that was Clint Eastwood, folks," before cutting to commercial. But the damage was done. Footage of the moment would go viral within hours, fans and critics dissecting every word, every glance. In the days to follow, people would question whether it was a publicity stunt, a personal feud, or simply the moment when one of Hollywood's last legends decided enough was enough. The internet exploded. Hashtags like Clint walks out and Kimmel clash trended on every major platform. Some hailed Eastwood as a hero, praising his refusal to tolerate what they saw as disrespect from a younger generation of entertainers. Others defended Kimmel, insisting the host was simply doing his job and that Eastwood had overreacted. Media outlets replayed the clip on a loop, and even rival talk show hosts weighed in. Stephen Colbert jokingly offered Clint a seat on his show, promising no zingers, just reverence. The debate transcended entertainment, sparking conversations about respect, generational differences, and how far comedy should go. Meanwhile, Eastwood remained silent. He didn't tweet, didn't call for clarification. He let the moment speak for itself. After all, silence had always been one of his greatest weapons, and in that silence, his fans found more substance than any viral meme or soundbite. The walkout had become a symbol, and Eastwood had become its icon. Behind the scenes, ABC executives were reportedly furious. They hadn't anticipated the fallout from the clash and were now fielding calls from advertisers and publicists. The production team of the show was debriefed in a closed-door meeting, with new policies suggested to better handle high-profile guests with known sensitivities. Some crew members supported Eastwood, saying he had been clear about his boundaries and that Kimmel ignored them. Others believed it was all part of the risk that comes with unscripted television. Regardless, the show's reputation had taken a hit. Overnight, the tone of Kimmel's humor was being questioned more than ever. Blogs, think pieces, and opinion columns began analyzing the line between playful teasing and outright disrespect. Eastwood, meanwhile, returned to California. Seen later at a quiet dinner with his film's cast, he smiled, waved at the press, and made no mention of the incident. He had said what he needed to say on camera, once, and with finality.